Welcome to the Society of Main Characters. I am Nolan Moonboy Luna Chavez, and the book we read is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Tonight, I am joined by one Keegan Cool, one Senor David,
Hola.
One Greyson. Oh. And last but not least, Senor Burgles.
Senor Burgles on the scene, coming at you live.
Oh man, that was spicy. I like it.
Fantastic.
By the way, I loved the slow opening of the. I don't know if you saw it, but I'm sure Keegan did. I started chuckling immediately.
Absolutely perfect. Okay, so the book we have recently enjoyed is called Project Hail Mary by one Andy Weir. It is actually probably one of the favorite books that I've read in the past, 5 years. Big sci-fi kind of guy. I like this one because it's not like too far in the future. It's a near future, as they call it, which means it's a very plausible scenario to happen in the next 15 20 years, I think, is what
I'd say next decade or two, right?
All right, yeah. Absolutely enjoyed it though. I love his writing style, and the story, if I'm being honest, was fantastic. Somebody described it as like a fun sciencey sci-fi with like a dash of buddy cop movie, and I have to kind of agree. Like that's a pretty good description. Is like a pretty cool sci-fi epic with a little sprinkle of Rush Hour in there. But absolutely love both of those genres, and I like this mashup, if you will, of projects that come together super well, in my opinion. Yeah, like I said, I absolutely enjoyed the characters, enjoyed the story, thought it was super cool, and I'm sure that you gentlemen did as well, or at least I hope you guys did. I know sometimes the suggested reading material can work for some people and not for others. So
Grayson sitting over there like, I can't wait to destroy this.
Yes.
David. Anyway, well, I'll wait to give my opinions on that, but I will say a lot of this was I enjoyed the story overall, but there was some stuff that rubbed me the wrong way having to sit through this book, but we'll get to that later on.
Okay.
Already contention, and it's not even 5 minutes in.
I am very opinionated.
2 minutes.
Very opinionated.
It's very. Oh yeah, I understand that, Grayson. I feel like you just need a big old hug.
Well,
Opinionated and be happy all at the same time, Nick. It's not incompatible, I promise you.
I just feel like you need a big hug. Can I not just give you a big hug?
I prefer you didn't, but at the same time, do what you got to do, buddy.
Well, you and I
to
have yet to meet in person, so that's. Just,
I would like to say I definitely like the way that you brought it up, Nolan, about the near future, like near sci-fi, very, very realistic in some aspects.
Oh, 1000%.
It is things that, a lot of sci-fi books, it is not what I would say the most plausible all the time. Like there's usually still some pretty sound science and you could see it eventually getting there. But I feel like nothing really mentioned in this book was 100% unbelievable. Definitely the tech with like some of the because even like putting them into the hypersleep and things like that, they mentioned was very experimental and was something that had to be worked on for a couple years.
People, yeah.
Right, exactly. Like it was obviously untested because that's not something we have now. But I could believe that there is coma places out there working on things like this.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
1000%. Kind of believable. It's if I'm being honest, that's one of my favorite things about Andy Weir and his writing style. Is a lot of people say like his sci-fi stuff, like his like facts and his like science kind of checks out a lot. It's one of those ones that he's not too far-fetched about a lot of things. I mean, obviously you got to be a little far-fetched in sci-fi and kind of push the boundaries a little
Absolutely.
bit.
Like once you brought in Rocky and stuff, there was definitely things that you had to expend your disbelief, but I didn't, nothing took me out of it. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing that broke my immersion that I was like, okay, that's just ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I do think even though it's sci-fi, he kept it relatively grounded, I feel like.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
and
and I
not
think
to
that's
mention-
possibly what I like about him the most. Sorry,
Mhm.
Bert, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, not to mention, if you read the acknowledgments, he did actually consult with people about the science behind, his story.
Oh yeah,
He definitely strikes me as the type that does a lot of scientific research before getting everything down. He definitely looks like a guy that crosses his T's and goes into it
Dots
as
his
much as
I's,
he
yep.
can. Yeah.
well, so some of his other material, right? Like The Martian was his first book. That's another really good one if you haven't read it.
Probably the most famous one he's written so far.
Right.
Due to the movie and stuff, right?
The movie's pretty good too. It's one of those things that they said with the exception of the windstorm on Mars or whatnot, everything that he talks about is like scientifically accurate.
Nice.
So it's one of those ones that I don't imagine that this book is any different, right? There's some stuff that's a little like, you gotta like church it up because it's sci-fi or whatever, right? You gotta
Right, because this one definitely goes, I think, more into the fantastical side of sci-fi, more so than The
Right.
Martian.
So yeah, you gotta put some zhuzh on there, you know what I mean, every once in a while. But I think for the most part, like if you were to check, 95% of the science or something like that, you're gonna find it's pretty accurate or pretty true.
Yeah. To David's point, like honestly, the zhuzh was not anything that was like a little too much. Like it made sense. It was scientifically, viable. It wasn't just like, and then science stuff happens, and then we have this. It had a progression to it that actually seemed realistic and didn't really feel like it was just a replacement for magical stuff happens here, and now we're here.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's one of those ones that. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, but I mean, I had a fantastic time reading it. And then some of the weird, not weird, but like the twists in there, if you were, I thought were kind of cool because I went into it pretty raw as far as like not reading anything about it or knowing anything like about the story. I know some of you guys said you read the back of the book or whatever. I didn't do that. I just
Same here.
let's go right into it.
I just knew it was gonna have something sci-fi. That's all I knew going into it.
So yeah, I went in, like I said, raw, didn't even think about it. My buddy was like, "Hey, you like The Martian? You'll probably like this book too." And I was like, "Okay, cool," and just dove right in. So I didn't have any idea or synopsis or what might happen in the book. And I thought it was fantastic. The twists and the not really turns necessarily, or to be honest, that big of like a twist now, but it was the way it was added or the way he went about it, I think I liked it personally.
I liked, in my opinion, and I think this was the biggest twist of the book, I like the way that he formatted it to be, we got the backstory in flashbacks of him recovering his memory as he kept going, so that we didn't know till almost the end of the book that he was literally forced into going on this.
Yeah, that he didn't.
That he never chose to go and help save Earth. That he was basically press ganged into doing it.
So one of my favorite directors is Tarantino, and I was like, oh, this that's what kind of hooked me. I was like, oh, this has like a Tarantino-esque kind of like thing where he's like, oh shit, I don't know what's going on here, but he's kind of like getting the memories back, figuring it out as you go along, and it's like, oh, we're literally in the third act of his story, realistically. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it worked so much better that way than giving us a chronological, like, here's all of that and then space. I like the interspersing between the two. It did a good job of breaking up some of the monotony of the space parts too, because I gotta admit, it got a little dense in some of the space things. Like, I did not need to read full chapters about him continually going out there to collect stuff. That got so old. I mean,
sometimes it happens,
It did, yeah, I get it. And like, oh, it wasn't harrowing, it was boring. It got to the point where I was just like, okay, we get it. Like, he almost fell off. Okay.
It is the monotony of space.
I will say, going off of David's point there, I think one of my favorite parts of the book was finding out that he did not want to go initially. And yeah, the way that they told the story of, if they had given all of the exposition of him getting to space at the beginning, it would not have.
It would have changed the story.
It wouldn't have had the same impact.
Yeah, it doesn't have the impact. Yep.
Like, I felt leading up to it, I was like, okay, so he's going to reluctantly go because something's going to happen and he's going to feel like, I feel obligated. I did not think that he was going to flat out be like, well, I guess Earth is screwed, I'm not going.
Sorry,
they had to like drug him to go.
Yeah, like that was pretty brutal.
Yeah, I forgot that was like one of the twists. Is that he was drugged like,
and then basically held prisoner until they could get him on, so that nobody else would know that he didn't want to be there.
It was like whatchamacallit, what is it, the movie Passengers or whatever with
where she didn't know that he woke her up.
Yeah, he didn't know he woke her up and essentially a death sentence or whatever, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, it is crazy. Like once you get to that point, and you're like, oh, that's not cool.
But I can't 100% say I blame her.
Fair. I mean, but
if you've got to weigh
the needs of one over the needs of
humanity
right?
and the entire planet over sacrificing one guy, like, I mean, it's cold. It's very cold what she did, but I think that her character was that way because that's why she was chosen to be the one to do this.
Well,
Now,
she shows some vulnerability at that scene to her. She's like, I don't want to do this, but the two people ahead of you are gone, and we don't have time to catch people up. Like, we have to go.
Yeah, I mean,
so, like, I think character-wise, they wrote it out well, and it
like
fit.
you have to sacrifice,
right? Yeah. Like you were here for the training, you know what's going on, you know the actual like microbiome of all this. Why would anybody else go in your place? Like, make that make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense. It's like
I'm going to tell you now what I thought was going to happen when they made the point of talking about how the guy who was going to go was sleeping with the one that was going to be his replacement or whatever, you know?
Yes.
I thought she was going to get pregnant and be having a baby. And Grace was like, hey, you're going to have a son. I don't have a family, you know, like, be here for your kid. You know, that's what I thought.
Well, you guys are giving him a lot of credit, because I'm going to be honest with you. When I was reading through it, I'm like, there's no way they picked Grace as the main dude to go up there. Just through all the flashbacks, the way he acted, the dialogue, I'm like, there's no way he was the main guy. He was going to be the backup of the backup of the backup. When they said that they had that whole thing in place, I'm like, okay, where's the twist going to be where it's like, shock, he's the last, guy that they're going to pick? Because honestly, even before they revealed that he was forced onto it, I'm like, he's not going to do this willingly, because he's kind of, at least from like his previous life, kind of sounds like a little bit of a man-child. A little bit.
But also, he's not an astronaut like anybody else either. Like, that was part of it too, is like, he just happens to be like a regular dude, you know?
Well, it's like
he was just in the right place at the wrong time.
I mean, honestly, some of the dialogue, like, choices kind of made it sound a little bit like a Marvel movie, and I'm like, with the way this dude talks, I don't see him being the guy who's stepping up to go to space.
Fair.
Not only that, but that same characterization, because I totally agree with you, Grayson. I do not think at all that he's the kind of character that would decide, oh, I'm going to go live on the space aliens planet for the rest of my life.
100%.
The ending almost killed the whole book for me, because I just don't find that realistic. I think he would help him.
The growth, though, David?
No, I do agree. He would. I do think he would turn around and save Rocky's life. 100%. I do agree with that. And I think he would even potentially be like, hey, it may be bad for me, but I'm going to get you to your planet to save your people, because that would have been the growth of, I wasn't going to sacrifice for my planet, but now that I understand, I'm going to help you save yours.
Yeah.
But after that happened, the fact that he didn't then be like, all right, I'm going to go to Earth now, I don't think he'd spend his life there the way that it says that he did.
Well, so with that, I also do have to mention, like, he also doesn't know how to hook himself back up to the sleeping machine.
Oh, I know. He would have to be, but I would also see a world possibly where like Rocky would go with him or something like that to go, like an ambassador to Earth or something like that. I feel like somebody on their planet.
But then I was like, like Rocky does, it's the same thing essentially, like just on the other end. You know what I mean? Like,
right. But
yeah,
it
but
would
Rocky
be,
can live for so much longer. Like,
exactly.
It would make sense. Like,
Rocky's already lived like 2 of his lifetimes.
Right. Their species lives for literally over 1,000 years. So I would understand. Plus, his planet was nowhere near as in a dire circumstance like Earth was.
Right.
Yeah. Because
you'd
at least want to see if it like was successful. I know that at the end they're like, well, it's like getting brighter, the sun. But like personally, wouldn't you want to go back and be like, well, I just want to make sure like it worked.
And just see what's going on. Like, and also maybe this is just me being, a lonely guy or something, but I can't imagine not wanting to have any female companionship for the rest of your life when you're a 30-year-old male.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with David there.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to say
this
is the only time I'm going to be super negative with the book, and even then it's not that negative. I agree with David. I didn't like the ending. For me, the whole Talmiba being able to permeate through Xenonite just felt like it undermined the whole entire like awesomeness of Xenonite throughout the entire rest of the book. Had it were up to me, I would have gotten rid of that part. Rylan would have gone back to Earth. Strat would have gotten in trouble for all of her stuff. Rylan becomes
Or she'd be dead.
Or
By that time,
Because it's been a long
she's too old or
time.
dead. Yeah,
or
like,
she's dead. That's true. Rylan becomes the teacher to the kids at like the grandkids of the kids they used to teach. And then, like I told David, I think it'd be awesome. A nice little send off at the end of the book would be him stargazing and then seeing like blip A flash in Morse code the words "thank you."
Yeah, or him like starting a program to start up something between him and Rocky's planets, because I
Sure.
do believe that showed that they were more technologically advanced than us, correct?
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you would
In
think
ways-
that
in
once he
some
got
ways,
to the
yeah.
planet, like their thank you, like this guy literally is the reason they saved their planet. You would think
Yeah.
that they would be like, hey, now that we've got you a food source so we can make this happen, let's take some of our tech, go to your planet and help out. Let's start a partnership between
Start
us and get
something like that,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure they'd want to then maybe even go and see if there's other life. Because now if there's 2 planets of life, who knows what else is out there?
What
And
else,
together
yeah,
y'all can explore those possibilities. So I mean,
They could find other planets that are affected by the Petrova line or whatever.
right, like
Stroboscope.
I do
Astrophagia.
understand what I think he was going for with it, and Grace just being like, well, they've wrote me off. I don't really have anything I need to go back for. Maybe someday,
Right.
but I just personally, I don't think it was a super satisfying ending. I
No.
like that he went back to save Rocky. I do think the character growth was definitely there for that. He gave up potentially getting back to Earth ever
Right.
to save a new
To
friend, to
save
help
him.
a new species. 100%, I like that. But the fact that he decided to then throw the rest of his years away basically teaching little spiders didn't jive with me as well. And I do agree with Nick about it being able to go through the Xenonite and stuff. If that can escape through the permeation, how did the air stay in? How did the different atmospheres not be a bigger issue?
That's a great
That's
question.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know the science. I'm not a science guy. I'm a writer. I'm a wordsmith. I'm not a math and science dude. So I can't tell you, yes, no, whatever. But it is interesting that it did kind of feel like a sudden, like, oh, but wait, there's still this problem that had to be addressed. So it's like he needed another conflict to get to the ending he wanted. So he just decided that that's what would have happened.
That's what it is.
I do agree with that, but in all honesty, like I'm a kind of a huge nerd for this kind of science stuff, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but enough to be like, I know a little bit. But with like the way that he described the science,
Well, actually,
Actually, it's called the Petroboscope.
I called it Fibers by Toki.
but I actually made this model real quick. I can show you guys. Let me.
I was waiting
So
almost.
the DNA is structured this way.
Nolan with the entire visor. That was awesome.
Visor.
But basically, just from the way they describe the science is that since it's 2 liquids being combined together and they're like synthesizing proteins, there is gaps where microscopically they can fit in like those gaps and hide from the nitrogen in order to like basically survive in essentially a cave system inside the nanofibers of the proteins that exist in the material. So, I mean, I do feel like, again, I kind of agree where I do feel like it's a little bit of a stretch just to get more of a conflict going to make him not return to Earth. But at the same time, there's like just enough science just to make it make sense.
Yeah, like I said, nothing happened that ever broke my immersion that I was like, no, dumb. I just didn't agree with the character's choice or the writing choice. It's still a choice. Like, it's still a story. It doesn't kill it for me. I just didn't like that part as much. But I mean, overall, I thought it was a great book. It's probably one of the best sci-fi books that I've personally read.
Nice.
I don't read a ton of sci-fi, but of the ones that I have, it's definitely probably in my top 10.
I think this is the only sci-fi novel I've ever read, and I've enjoyed it. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to the movie. Actually,
I'm excited to
Cannot
see
wait.
Ryan Gosling.
I cannot wait to be one of those people who'll be like, actually, the book was better.
Yeah, you actually get to do that, Berg, for once.
Yeah, I've never been able to do that. I was telling David the only other 2 books I've read that have movie adaptations are The Giver and The Picture of Dorian Gray.
Okay.
Now I've only seen the ending to one film adaptation of Picture of Dorian Gray, and I already did not like the changes they made. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil the book in case anyone hasn't read it yet. But that's the only other time I've ever done it. And then when I saw the trailer for The Giver, it looked a little too much like Hunger Games.
I think
And
they were trying to
sci-fi
go
to
off
me.
that era, but I think the movie was done well, considering the source. Like, that's a difficult book to really do because it's some very abstract concepts, I think.
Right.
Well, getting back to Hail Mary, is there any maybe ways you thought this book was going to go as you were reading it that obviously it didn't go, like twists or just character developments that you thought maybe it was going to happen that way?
I mean, again, I didn't read the back or anything. I just read it, so I did not expect there to be other aliens in the book.
Right. That was the biggest thing for me is like
Yeah.
the biggest shock was like, oh, that's like a ship or something. And it's like, oh, maybe it's just big floating shit out here in space because that's what happens in space. There's just lots of
Big
I thought it was
floating
like
shit.
people from
Yeah.
the future. Like he had been out there so long that another
It's like
crew had
other
been
Earth, like,
sent.
oh, we saw
Yeah.
that like 100 years ago, bro.
yeah, like where have you been, dog? Yeah, no, and that's very plausible, right? For exactly that, is like, oh, well, we sent you out 100 years ago, and then we heard
never came
nothing
back.
from you. Yeah, like it's you know what I mean because you were sleeping for literally 100 years or something. Like,
Because I mean, if we saw it kill his friends, who
Right.
says that it kept him asleep for the right amount of time?
Right.
exactly.
It could have
they're-
been, yeah. I
could-
definitely get seeing that could have almost like a Planet of the Apes type thing.
Right.
I question, am I the only one that read, like, when they were talking in space, am I the only one that read Rocky's dialogue in a Russian accent in my head?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I did. Like, you go sleep now. I take care of ship. Like okay, cool.
I
Just 'cause
will
it's broken
say,
English, I think, is what it is.
I will
I
say
think
that's
that might
another
be it.
thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a bit. I'm sorry. I do not believe at
Still
all
upset about
that he fucking learned that language,
language,
in like
yeah.
2 weeks. Like,
I can believe that. I can believe that because if you're immersed in it, you're gonna learn it faster.
but I don't
So,
feel
and
like
I
he
love,
was.
and I loved the fact that they went into how they learned each other's.
I like that
language
there was at
in space.
least like, even if I don't find it plausible, there at least was a reason, and it wasn't just like, oh, he could telepathically learn my language so we could communicate. You know what I mean, or something.
It wasn't some weird convoluted made up bullshit. Of
Right,
just
like he easily could have hand waved it and just been
Right.
like, oh, Rocky had a neural translator that allowed it. You know what I mean?
Well, they're
So-
advanced enough, right? It's like, oh, well, they,
Right.
like realistically, I mean, shit, I have a pair of headphones that do, language translation now. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's not super far fetched, but yeah, it's
But
like,
I'm
oh,
glad that
okay,
they
well,
didn't take the easy way out. There was at least something behind it.
right.
And
Now,
I
feel
hate
like
the
a
fact that Rocky was like blind.
I will
But
say that probably made for the best part of the book with
But I
them,
do
learning
think-
each other's languages and stuff because of that.
yeah, I think it's interesting though. I do like that it did make the aliens something very different from Earth.
Right.
That they
Yeah.
would develop very differently in different environments.
It wasn't like
different
Star Trek where it's just like some green chick. Like who cares?
right, and they still have like the same atmosphere as us, so they can breathe. And no, I like
Right.
that it was very
That's-
much like, I do believe this is a totally different ecosystem, a different planet, different evolutionary strand. Like, I get it. I did like that. And
Well,
without a
because,
sun, why would they have
realistically,
eyes?
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I'm. It's like, because and that's what I was saying is like I do like the choices that he did make for Rocky as far as like the characteristics and things that they did have about it, like making sense for like where he comes from. Like it makes sense for him to be a certain way or whatever, right? So I did like that aspect. It was like, oh, so you're exactly right. It's not just a dude who's blue or gray or something. It's a whole different thing essentially, right? Like a whole different being, which does make it kind of cool. So
I appreciated like Rocky's like design as well. Just like all you guys are saying, like the steps they went into reminded me of Alien Planet, which was a documentary based off a 1990 book called Expedition, where they just kind of described an alien planet and how where it was based would affect how life would look, and none of it would look like we think it would.
And I think it's interesting that part of Rocky was almost like machine-like.
yeah,
To one
I thought
degree,
he had
right?
like a pyramid, like a half pyramid on the top of his head, is how I pictured it, I guess.
if I'm being honest, I kind of picture it. So what's the Studio Ghibli movie where they have the little black thingies with the eyes and the
You're
arms?
talking about
Oh,
Princess Mononoke.
Yeah. No,
No, it's not Mononoke.
You're talking about the suit sprites.
Something like that. Yeah, it's either Kiki's or Spirited Away, one of the two. Either way, like that's how I see Rocky, is like those little black things with arms and just like it doesn't have eyes.
Hang out with the spider guy, right?
Yeah, like that's exactly what I picture. Is like one of those, but just like more arms or something.
It's Spirited Away. Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I kind of like picture them in my brain. Even though I know he's not like a complete little spiky.
That's the one with the river dragon at the end, I think, and everything, right? Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of that's how I see him or whatever, just with more arms and like, yeah. But I thought it was kind of cool. Like I feel like his legs, like he looks like an ostrich. He's just got like ostrich legs, because I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they look very like armored, like the way like the folds look. That's kind of how I felt his legs looked to some degree, but yeah.
Oh, see, I pictured him with like the texture of kind of like the Thing. I don't know.
Oh, like
yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah,
it's just a small The Thing.
Yeah, with like
honestly, like
multiple legs and then like a weird pyramid like type of head with wearing like a green shirt. I don't know.
And so what the thing is like you said, I'm super excited to see what they make him look like in the movie. Because like I feel like if they take the route of like getting Andy's like opinion or like what his like vision is, you know what I mean? It's like, here, what did you vision or what did you like draw? You know what I mean? Like draw whatever it is that you think he's gonna be, kind of thing, right?
I just shared to the Discord a fan art picture.
Yeah, I saw that earlier that somebody had drawn.
That's so
of Ryan and Rocky.
That just looks like a potato with legs.
Yeah, that's not what I thought it looked like.
It looks like.
I mean, now I'm hungry for some baked potatoes. Like, come on, let's go.
I will say though, like, as far as like actors go, I didn't think it was gonna be like Ryan Gosling. Like, doesn't seem like the type to me, anyways. But right now, I just see Ryan Gosling as a very good action star at the moment. So,
I mean, I could see it, especially because if you think about it, the transformation is a little bit like what he went through in the Barbie movie with Ken.
Maybe a little bit.
And you know, it's funny. I was just looking at that too, because there's pictures of the cover of Project Hail Mary right next to Ryan Gosling as Ken, and I'm like, no, I don't see it. I don't.
Now that I'm thinking about it, though, I think like somebody like Jake Gyllenhaal would have been good.
Oh, that would have been a great choice.
I think that would have been.
He might be a little older than they wanted, but I think I would say go for it.
Right, but you know, because it's just one of those ones that I was like, he has the ability to be, well, I mean, shit, he's got the ability to be Bubble Boy and Billy Hope. You know what I mean? Like he's got a lot of range, and I don't think
I could see him being like, no, I'm not going to go. I'll help you, but I'm not.
Right. I see him being that way more than I do like Ryan Gosling, but that's just me. You know what I mean? That's who I would have gone with. Maybe something like that. Somebody like Jake Gyllenhaal or, you know, maybe John Hamm or something like that. But
I mean, I could even see Matt Damon doing it again, you know?
Oh,
because the whole point of this book is that he doesn't go home. Matt Damon can only be in movies where we have to get him home.
Yeah, that checks. Saving Private Ryan, Martian.
What about Christian Bale?
Bourne? Huh?
Christian Bale's not likable enough for it.
No, yeah, definitely not.
Christian Bale would have been like the commander that was super serious about the mission and was ready to sacrifice.
Oh yeah, 1000%.
Speaking of Matt Damon getting home, do you know what his newest role is now that he's going to be in?
Going to be in the Odyssey.
Yep, he's Odysseus.
He is Odysseus.
The whole movie about trying to get home.
Look, I like Matt Damon, but good God,
Matt Damon.
Apparently, like
is that the same?
Segel.
Is that the same movie that Tom Holland's going to be in?
Yeah. Apparently, the role was actually they wanted it to be RDJ. They offered it to Robert Downey Jr., but he's too busy doing the next Avengers movies to be able to do it.
Stuff. Yeah, he seems pretty tied up with that, to be honest. What I was going to say, for some reason, I think that like in my brain, I think the person that would play like Strat or whatever, I think what's her face, Kate McKinnon, I think would do a pretty good job at that.
Kate McKinnon would do a great job.
Like Scarlett Johansson doing that.
Yeah, I mean ScarJo too, like she would work, but yeah, I feel like Kate would do a pretty good job at that, like being just that way for some reason.
What do you guys think about Freddie Highmore as the role of Ryland Grace?
Who is Freddie Highmore?
He should have stayed as
Freddie
child.
Highmore. He's the same actor who plays the Good Doctor in the show The Good Doctor, and also the kid from August Rush.
I don't see him
what's
as
his face
a.
from?
Yeah, I don't see him as a teacher that the kids are very personable with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
No,
see, for me,
You
I
gotta have
pictured it
that
more like
warm-
Jason Segel from How I Met Your Mother.
I could see that, but I feel like Jason would go.
Jason wouldn't be serious enough, I don't think. No
That's right.
offense against the guy. It's just he's not a very serious actor. What about
See,
Aaron
and
Taylor
And
Johnson?
that's why I'm saying like Jake Gyllenhaal works perfectly. I think he's like personable enough. Like he would do okay with
Ooh.
like the kids.
Honestly,
and then
John
honestly,
Boyega.
If we're keeping it with How I Met Your Mother, Ted.
Yeah.
I can see
Yep.
that would have
I
been a
can see
great
Josh Radner. I can see
Josh
Radner.
Radner,
doing
yeah,
that.
definitely. I think could definitely do that.
Josh Radner would nail this role because I would totally believe that he's smart enough, that he's a teacher, but then he's smart enough to do this, but will not give up his life to go.
That would
But
be a nice
then once he's
turn
there,
of-
would immediately make a connection with an alien.
It'd be a
it's one
nice
of those
turn of
things, like-
role for him.
He would just be Ted in space, really.
I would. I'm not gonna lie. I'd watch a whole series called Ted in Space.
Ted in space, yeah. Talk about his encyclopedia and his Renaissance Festival. Yeah. No can do'sville, baby doll.
Did you guys hear me on the other two actors I suggested? One was a troll answer.
Was it John Voight? You said.
John
I said
Boyega.
John Boyega, yeah, that was a
He's
troll
talking about
answer.
Black
Well, he
Stormtrooper.
could be good in that role, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
He could be, but I don't know if he's gonna
Fifty-nine
ever get a role
character
again now.
White,
Oh,
but
jeez.
The other role I said was Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Ooh.
No.
no.
I
What
don't know.
about Daniel Radcliffe? I think he could actually do a pretty good job doing that.
Daniel Radcliffe, I could see. What about Miles Teller?
I wouldn't believe Miles
Yeah.
Teller. I'd
So-
be okay with Daniel Radcliffe possibly.
Taron
I mean,
Egerton?
I think he could do it, but
I think you guys are going too young.
Yeah.
Taron Egerton? I just
Again,
googled
think
like
you're going-
actors in their 30s, so I'm just
Yeah, I think I don't think they have the correct amount of gravitas for it.
Right.
Evan Peters. Evan Peters, I could see doing it.
I couldn't
No.
see that at all.
Too young.
No. Stick to American Horror Story. You know what I'm saying?
Stick to discount Quicksilver.
Right.
honestly, I could see Glenn Powell doing something like this.
I said that before.
Glenn Powell
when,
does work.
yeah.
I
think he
can't stand that guy. For some
But if you
reason.
saw him in that movie where he was the teacher that became the like fake
That's right,
serial
he is.
killer,
Hitman.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have seen that
We've already
movie, and
done
that movie was boring as hell.
Really,
it's
you
a true
thought so?
story.
Hmm
I thought it was a great
Well,
movie.
it doesn't mean Glenn Powell couldn't do it. But.
I really liked him in Twisters too.
Yeah, I thought he was
Yeah,
pretty
I did
solid.
like him in Twisters.
Did you guys ever see Everybody Wants Some?
Yeah.
I thought it was real good in that movie too.
Yeah, dude. I think he's like I said. I think he's that's a solid choice. If I'm being honest, him or like I said, my two are Jake Gyllenhaal and definitely.
I'm really liking Josh Radnor as a choice now that we've said it.
Me too.
But I could definitely see Ted. Yeah, I guess I would definitely see Josh Radnor as
Because I could see him definitely being a teacher.
as
being,
Ryland
like,
Grace.
super into the really close to the kids.
Well, he
and
was. He was
everything.
Professor Mosby. He did teach.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it is one of those ones that like his demeanor with like Marshall, right, of like being a friend, like with them, I think like also works, especially for that the buddy-esque kind of bits, right?
See, now I want the whole movie to be Josh Radnor and Rocky is just Jason Segel in a spider costume.
Oh my god, I would love that. That would be hilarious.
I would see that multiple times.
Let's definitely put a petition out to have that happen.
And none of that's played for comedy. It's
No.
that's just who's playing it.
That's just exactly that's exactly it.
I was gonna say another troll answer, but I actually do like Ted Mosby as Josh Radnor.
Plus, they're both at the age, or at least Josh Radnor's at the age where he fits the description almost to a T. And then if they actually bring in Jason Segel to voice Rocky, that would just be a callback just to be just the best connection for the ages, just in a major motion picture.
Absolutely.
If he drops a big fudge just in the middle of talking to Rocky while they're in the ship, I wouldn't be mad at it, but I think that might be too on the nose. But
And you know what? We might even go a step further and rename the character to Ted Mosby. And
rename the ship to Ted Mosby.
No, it's just Project Hail Mosby.
Hail Mosby. What is it? Jed Mosley or whatever. The the made up movie name?
I swear he said Ted Mosby that time.
I swear he said
You're
Ted
being
Mosby.
crazy.
Yeah. Oh, you're going crazy. What? Jed Mosley? Yeah.
Look, we need you to go to space. No can do'sville, baby doll.
No can do'sville, baby doll. Yeah. Or he wakes up and his personal effects are the red boots, you know?
Or just the first time he puts on the spacesuit, just pulling it off.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, I would watch that. That'd be fantastic.
Did you guys do the How I Met Your Mother podcast already?
We haven't done any of that yet.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Yes, not yet. So, I guess I got a question for everybody. Like the astrophage, essentially, right? Like the little
Bacteria, yeah.
Algae.
like algae, I guess technically.
It's space algae, basically. Yeah.
Pretty much, right? How do you think, like, if that were like a real thing, like a real threat, I guess, right, to our planet, do you think that we'd be able to like pull our heads out of our asses long enough to do what they did and like make the I essentially call it the Pacific Rimming, right?
Yeah, no, I do believe the one thing that you can count on humans for is we would band together against something else if it was a threat to all of us.
Yeah, in times
You
of
think so?
crisis, we're pretty good at coming together. Even
Yeah,
with
I
differences.
would love to
That's
think
what
that, but I don't know if
Well, and
You
I
know,
said
would.
it because in the book, obviously, it's one of those ones that like when he wrote this, Russia wasn't invading like Ukraine or whatever. Like at the time,
I think everything would be put to the side momentarily if it was a threat to everybody. Now, if it was a smaller threat, like let's say this problem was going to suck, but it would only really suck for like Australia or China or something.
Yeah.
No dice. Nobody would know.
No, you don't think so?
But if it was a threat to the planet and it was proven that there was no
Oh yeah, well, because I mean, it's eating our sun essentially.
if there was no question about it, I do think that we would. I mean, it's just like Independence Day, how everybody put
Armageddon,
everything
yeah.
aside.
I would think there'd be contention actually.
Not
I think
none
there'd
that
be
I think would
I think there'd be bigger parties competing against each other to solve the problem first.
Well, to that point, I think honestly, it's more like what the arguments that they brought out after the fact, where like everybody did come together to bring the project to fruition, but now that everybody's gone, they're going to fight for the resources that are left over in order to provide for whoever is left on the planet. So once the rocket's actually in the air, that's when the fighting's going to start.
Yeah, because Trout's going to go to jail. The whole Sahara thing is going to get broken up into different pieces. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like because, and that's why I'm asking that question is like, yeah, we might be able to get our heads out of our asses for about 5 minutes to maybe try to come together to solve this problem, but like after, like.
After there'd be wars.
That's what I mean. Is it a free for all? Is it you know what I mean? Like biggest
Well, to put
country.
it like a movie analogy, have you guys ever seen Dr. Strangelove?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've heard of it. I've never watched it.
I would say definitely worth checking out if you're willing to sit through an old movie. But essentially, same kind of thing happens. Nuke gets or orders for a nuke gets released. Everybody's trying to band together to stop the nuke before it gets dropped on the actual target. But essentially, how the movie goes, everybody's working on it, and to kind of spoil the ending, there's a Russian just delegate who's in there trying to essentially mitigate like the issue of what's going on with the nuke. And as everybody's freaking out after the nuke drops, he's taking pictures of the American secrets and like all of this stuff that he has access to because he's in like, the underground meeting room for the United States to try to control the situation. So I think it'd be something like that where even though like people are trying to do what they can to do better, there's going to be somebody else who's going to try to be able to take credit or profit off of it in some way, where it's not just going to be a selfless act. It's going to be, the rocket ship sponsored by Meta or Amazon, so to speak.
Right.
It's just
And
some sort of person just trying to get as much money out of this as possible.
And that's what I was saying is like, because like that's, and it's unfortunate because like that's the way my brain works sometimes too. When I like think about things like that is like, yeah, I guess we'd come together for about 5 minutes, right? Band together a little bit. But you're exactly right. It's like, oh, well, shit, Jeff Bezos is trying to take over whatever it is, right? Or like Elon's like, oh, okay, well, I stepped in and I have, you know what I mean? Like, well, I put forward however much to this like effort kind of thing. And it's like
well, I think
power,
a great example of this kind of thing, one of my all-time favorite books, I don't know if you guys have read it. You might have seen the movie, which I think was awful and a disservice to the actual book. Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card.
Love that book.
There is basically an alien invasion happened a while back, and humanity won, but barely kind of thing. So now they're training up people to be ready to, if they come back, or to take the fight to the aliens, right?
Mhm.
So in that, there's an entire subplot going on with other characters back on Earth, not like training to be, soldiers, that's talking about the political climate and everything is like,
Mhm.
yeah, there's peace right now while everybody's dealing with like the alien situation. But the second that that is done, all of these things are in place for these people taking over this to the, it's a huge thing. And then later on in the book, that's exactly what happens once the alien situation is dealt with. All hell basically breaks loose of people trying to, make power grabs and things like that. So I think it would be a situation like that. I think Greyson is completely right that everybody would be together for the years getting ready. And then
Mhm.
once Hail Mary went, it would be about, okay, how are we going to secure the resources to make sure that we're alive until this succeeds? Because it's
How do we profit? Yeah, how do we gain whatever?
yeah, there's no way that it would be
opportunity
like, I mean, there's a good chance that if Grace had come back, there would be no humanity, that it would have been a nuclear situation or something in fight over resources. Like,
Well,
I
maybe that's
hope
why
not,
he didn't go back. He was
but
like, because I know they kind of bring that up towards the end. Is well, he's thinking it might have been when he was in jail, but he's like, what's going to happen when I'm gone? Like, are they going to start fighting together for the resources, for the food? It goes into the whole spiel about like all wars are fought over food. So once that goes downhill, what's going to happen? So maybe that's why he ended up being like, you know what, I'm going to go with Rocky.
Yeah.
what I think would be interesting, how do you think this book would have changed if one or both of his crew members would have lived with him?
Hmm.
Or when he runs into Rocky, what if there would have been several aliens on that ship?
Sexual tension either way.
And he's yeah, obviously.
Rocky,
I have to go.
No, I know. I mean, there might because wasn't no. I mean, I am serious. There might have been some sexual tension because wasn't one of the people that was supposed to go one of the scientists that was sleeping with the other guy.
No,
No, they both died.
They both died because
They
they
both
were
died in the
in the
explosion.
explosion.
together in the
Oh,
explosion.
that's right.
No, it would have been the commander and the Russian girl,
Yeah.
the one that requested drugs as her way of death.
Heroin. Yeah.
Right.
That is such
Overdose.
a weird. Yeah.
Such a Russian way to go. No,
That
it's
wasn't Russian, wasn't? No, no.
yeah, that was
Okay,
so the other
whatever.
two were China and Russia. It was China, Russia, the U.S. Each
Well,
sent
and yeah, but at the same time, I can understand that because as you saw in the book, she had done almost nothing her entire life, nothing rebellious at all, and that's
Right,
believable for that society because they.
well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like so I don't fully disagree with her choice there, but it's more so like people that like space and know about space also understand the key tenet of space of like literally anything you do that goes wrong and you're dead. Like realistically, it's just that's how that works. Rip a hole in your suit, dead. Don't close the airlock in time, dead.
It's very much like the early days of like submarines.
Oh yeah, it just
except to the nth degree, because at least in the submarines you could always surface and be okay.
yeah,
Depends
you
how
might get
early
the bends,
days we're
but like you
talking.
can at least probably try to make it to the surface. Yeah, spaces you get sucked out there, dead. You know what I mean? The lights go out, dead. You get too hot, dead. You get too cold, dead. A rock hits you off your course, dead. Like it just everything in space is there to kill you.
See, that's another thing. I feel like I get that he sent the three Beatles back to Earth, but I also feel like after he helped Rocky, you would feel some kind of moral obligation to like, I've got to make sure the response got there.
Yeah.
But
You know
see,
what I mean?
but the thing is, he doesn't have any communication like the way. Like
no, I'm
that.
saying to go back.
Oh yeah, I mean,
because if the answer didn't get to them, he would be their only.
Well, I think that's why he sent all three of them. Like, was just you know what I mean, just to.
But like you just said,
Well,
anything can happen in space.
I thought he sent all
yeah,
four.
like realistically, yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, it's like. Never mind. I forgot what I was going to say.
I thought he sent all four Beatles back to Earth because didn't he say at the end, like, "Sorry, Rocky, I know you would have wanted one for yourself."
I think he had to have one to keep. Didn't he have to use one for himself or something?
No, he sent all four back before going to save Rocky.
I thought one they had to take parts out of to fix.
They took one out of So didn't they send two
They took
down?
they
to
took
Earth
they
and one
sent
back
they took
to-
so they separated one and then they used 3 as makeshift thrusters for his ship.
Right, but I thought one of them had to be taken apart
No,
to replace something at some point.
no, all
they
4
used
of,
it
I
as
mean,
fuel to get it back to Earth.
Okay, but either way, even if he sent 10, you would still want to make sure
that they still got there.
that something had reached Earth. Especially when you had so many issues with your ship and Rocky's ship, that something had happened. I feel like part of you would be like, okay, we saved your, I need to go make sure that they made it.
The part of it that
and
I find hard.
Well, good luck. I'm going to sit here and eat human flavored hamburgers.
The part of it that throws me off. The part of it that threw me off with the Beatles in that aspect was because it makes the book make it sound like it's just like the size of like a big Lego set, essentially, like the Millennium Falcon Lego set. And it's like, well, how does that small thing holding enough fuel to get all the way back to Earth when you're on this giant ship and you have, I think he said 5 fuel tanks?
Well, they explained that in the book. They said that because of how small it was and how much fuel Astrophage actually has, he's not going to have to maintain any sort of life systems or electricity or anything like that. He's just going to have to
purely thrust.
Yeah, it's just literally going through
thrust goes really. Yeah, I imagine them the size of like a golden retriever. Like you can hold it.
Yeah.
It fills your arms.
Yeah, like a small table or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, but realistically, I think that's exactly it. Though, is it comes down to you don't need to carry any. It's literally just essentially a USB inside of a table. Realistically, it's here's the data.
Like the actual payload was probably like this.
Yeah, hopefully it makes it through the thing or whatever. So you really realistically, you don't need the same amount of fuel as you do to get off the ground, to fly through space with X number of life systems and equipment and all that kind of other stuff. Which reminds me, what did you guys think about the ship design? I don't know if anybody really looked at the ship design, but I thought that was super cool on how they essentially you use centrifugal force to make gravity, to artificially make gravity.
I mean, that makes sense. That's the same thing. That's the same thing they do with training and stuff. And at Disney World at Epcot, one of the rides is literally it's Mission Space, where you feel like you're without gravity. They use centrifugal force the whole time.
That's pretty cool.
With screens that are showing something different, so you don't feel the spinning around. You just feel as if you're out of gravity.
You feel all weightless.
Yeah, it's super cool.
That is super cool.
Yeah, but again, that was part of the science that I feel like it made sense enough for me to be like, okay, I'll buy it.
Yeah, just turn this way, make this spin, boom. Now we got gravity.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to say real quick before we go too far down, when we got turned near the end of the book, I kind of was thinking with him being forced in there into the actual ship and him waking up to 2 dead bodies. I know he woke up out of a coma, but my thought was maybe he kind of got out of it, somehow alerted the systems, and then killed the people that were next to him. I thought that would have been a good possible twist. I don't know why I brought that up. I had a whole build up to that, and that just kind of word vomited out. But hopefully that makes sense what I'm trying to get at here a little bit.
No, I understand. You're different twists that could have been put forward, because I kind of thought that they were going to set it up where Rocky had sabotaged the ship somehow. When the Themeba got out at that one point, I was like, man, I really like Rocky. I hope he doesn't do it. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways they could have I thought Strat and him were going to have a relationship. I don't know if it's just media that we're intaking, but I was like, oh, they're going to set it up.
I felt that too.
Yeah.
Cut that tension.
I felt that too before the backstabbing.
Right.
I was like, oh man, this is leading to them having a relationship. And that's going to be his reason. That's going to be his reason for coming back to Earth.
Since you brought it up, though, I'm curious now. Since the other 2 died, right, in the suspended animation kind of thing or whatever, something didn't work properly. So obviously they didn't have time to test it, 1000%, things like that. What is your guys' idea or thought behind why his worked? Because
plot.
You think it's luck?
Plot ex machina.
Okay, because it's one of those things. I think about it this way, right? He was the only person that was drugged and put in there. So what if whatever she drugged him with helped him survive?
That'd be an interesting thought. We'll never know.
I know we'll never know, you know what I mean? But at least that's my
never
speculation
understand
is that whatever.
Unless Andy Weir is watching, and if so, Andy Weir, please comment why.
Yeah,
We'll
please
make you
comment why.
survive.
Andy, put out a sequel now explaining just that one thing.
That's it.
Just the robots
how
on
he
the ship
survived.
keeping them alive.
Well, because it's one of those things. Like I was
From
thinking
the
when I was
robot's perspective, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros the entire book.
I was
The
like, he was the
binary
only
vote.
one that survived, but he was also the only one that was drugged. So I imagine, like, I was like, maybe that got in his system and it mixed well with whatever the cocktail was, and then
It's a medical possibility, I imagine.
right, because I mean, like, realistically, that's how I'm sure they keep you alive, right? Is chemicals to some degree of like whatever it is, and essentially, formaldehyde that keeps you preserved, or whatever. So. Yeah, but it was just one of those things I was thinking about, and I was like, I feel like that's probably why he survived, is because he was the only person that was drugged with whatever drug it used, and that reacted well with whatever the system was, and the other two didn't, and that's kind of how he lived. At least I would like to think it's that way. I'm sure you could just chalk it up to he's the only guy that got lucky enough, or he survived because it was written that way.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it was written that way.
It was written that way, so.
Main character armor is a hard one to get through.
Yeah, I just kind of took it as like kind of luck of the draw, or maybe one of the other systems failed and just his didn't, because they were kind of mummified, the other two.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like they weren't getting something, so like something went wrong, which makes sense because we saw the ship having multiple different issues.
Oh, sure, but it's
kind of so
both of those
put together.
You think it has a 66% fail rate, though?
Well, I was honestly seeing it more like a systematic thing where, like, one got, where he wasn't able to get enough oxygen, or something else happened where, like, not enough intravenous drugs went through to keep them nourished while they were still under, like, the coma. So they might have, like, tried to, I don't know, possibly something where it went through, like, as the system was, like, not perfected. It was just through, as time went on, something failed progressively through each one of those tubes until somehow Rylands was able to make it all the way through.
I think with
Ryan, I do think you're onto something with that drug theory there, Nolan. Sorry, Nick, what were you saying?
No, it's all good. I was gonna say I think part with Ryland being the only survivor, because the way now that I'm thinking about that part of it, the other two people that didn't make it, I don't think there was enough food for them to even solve the problem. You know what I mean?
They would have run out way before they would have been able to actually get anything figured out.
They would have ran out halfway through the dang book.
Well, then I guess that also begs the question: if they had two other minds working on it, would they have figured it out sooner than Rocky and Ryland did?
Maybe.
Well, especially if the other two really wanted to be there, maybe they would have been more driven right out. I mean, he seemed kind of driven off the bat, but maybe the other two would have been more driven and not in so loopy of a state, since it was kind of said the drugs made him loopy right off the bat.
Right. Well, so I think it's one of those ones, like, you might be onto the whole, like, obviously, like, 3 brains are better than 1, right? Especially because, like, each country essentially sent some of their, like, brightest, astronauts.
Me too.
Right. Where they send their, like, best astronauts and things like that. And generally on a mission like that, the stuff that's important is obviously having brilliant minds to work on, a brilliant solution, right?
Well, I was just gonna say the whole concept behind science itself is peer review, and it's mentioned even in the book.
Right.
Peer review.
And I was gonna say, like, I feel like to some degree, like, that's why, like, you get around the people dying bit, right? Like his colleagues, like, dying, but you have to replace them with something, because you're exactly right. Like, Rocky came in and essentially was the peer reviewing engineer mind, right? Because it is one of those ones, like, if you're sitting out in space by yourself, I'm sure you get really confused, or nobody's there to check your work. You know what I mean? Like, you think every idea is the greatest idea ever because no one's there to tell you that it's not.
Yeah. Well, I loved too that, like, this, even though they're more technologically advanced, it explains like some of their gaps of knowledge. Like he had no idea what radiation was because why would they? They didn't study that. They've never even thought
Because he's
of
not
that
affected
aspect.
by it, right? Like, yeah, it's. I guess
Well,
it is. Like,
it's not. I don't think it was that he was not affected by it. It was where he was located in the ship helped him survive.
Well, that on their planet, the radiation couldn't get through like it does on Earth.
Mhm.
right, because their atmosphere is different. But I mean, essentially, that's what I mean. Like, it's like you don't know that space doesn't have oxygen unless you go out there and check. You know,
Yeah.
it's like one of those kind of situations. And sometimes it's well, shoot, like we'll take it even like caveman days. I don't know if this mushroom that I put in my mouth is going to kill me or not. The only way to tell is, well, you got to put it in your mouth.
It'll make you see God.
Yeah, right. So yeah, and that's exactly it. It's like so I think it's kind of cool though, like how they kind of take his partners and replace him with an alien that people like, and thought it was rather interesting. Thought it was like super cool to do that. But yeah, let's see. I had one other question.
I also love that while you're thinking of your other question, I also love that they made Rocky a friendly alien because I feel like it's a very sci-fi trope to make aliens just antagonistic right off the bat.
100%.
I think it was interesting that it was an alien that was facing the same exact problem, because it would have been very easy to make it an alien that's like, who are you and what the hell are you doing around my planet?
Well, to kind of both of those points, David, to answer your question from earlier, with like one of the other crewmates was actually alive, depending on how Andy Weir wanted to go about it, I think he could have used that to be like suspicious of like the benevolence of Rocky showing up, and then like there'd be a lot more infighting, and then like a possibility of like one turning traitorous because they don't trust Rocky enough or something like that, if he kept somebody else alive in that.
And he would have had to pick between like his human shipmate or Rocky.
Exactly. Which I think could have been a little like for a last like essentially
I think that
would have been actually a good little bit of drama right there.
It would have been but I think that would have been better than the Taumiba permeating through the Xenonite.
I feel like it changes the story too much. Like if you do that,
Yeah, I don't like doing that.
Well,
So
yeah, you'd have to change the story around completely.
Because then it would just start to be a story of, is humanity even worth saving? He's been betrayed twice now.
Yeah.
Right, like that, and that's what I was gonna say. I feel like it adds like, I think this book works because it only has like the literal like one human element, and it's one of those ones like his because like even when they have the conversations and they're talking about something like Rocky does not understand sarcasm, you know what I mean, or like just certain like idioms and things like that, where it's like I don't know what that means. He's kind of like Drax, right? Where like he takes a lot of things like literally, and you're like, it makes for an interesting like combination or an interesting like dynamic. I mean, when you say something sarcastic or whatever, and he's like, interesting, like, oh, okay. And he's like, I didn't, my bad. I didn't mean it that way. That's not what that meant.
Nothing goes past my head. My reflexes are too
My
quick.
reflexes are too fast. I catch it. Like that's exactly.
So here's a question I have. Do you guys think, casting aside, will this be as successful or more successful than The Martian, or will it be too niche and not be as big of a hit?
I can see it being a lateral hit, like it being right around the same, maybe a little less or maybe a little more, but right around the same kind of hit as The Martian.
I'd say relatively lateral, but I'd agree with Berg. Like I think it might not be as popular, just because it is. I think this one is a little more niche than The Martian, right? Because like everybody can get behind the whole, oh no, we left a soldier somewhere, like we need to get him back kind of thing. Like everybody can kind of, you know what I mean, get on
You
board.
wrap your heads around that.
Right, because it's I mean, like that's how it worked in essentially like in the world. Like when they were showing, it's like people are like, oh, let's get our astronaut back, and they even like bridge gaps between us and like the Chinese program or whatever, right? To like, make some changes or get these guys to get around to swinging to pick them up or stuff like that. So, but I feel like this one is definitely more of a hugely niche thing of like super science fiction-y kind of stuff, right? Mixed with like the for lack of a better term, like the buddy cop business. You know, like it's not that I've ever ran into anybody that doesn't like Rush Hour, but at the same time, it's like I could see if that's not your thing, that's not your thing, you know?
Right.
You
Plus, on
hear
top of
the
that, they
words
got
that are coming out of my mouth?
Well, they got a lot of heavy lifting that they have to do too. Like if they include all the science jargon in there, and then you want to like keep all the explanations in there, that's going to be a lot. And I mean, honestly, while I know that there is like the talks of it being a movie, I think this would do far better as a TV show, just with how much they have going on, the flashbacks, the memory problems, plus how lengthy and how much there is going on in this actual story. I think like maybe a 6 to 8 episode miniseries for this like actual book would probably do a lot more service to the overall content than just a movie.
Well, yeah, you know, Grayson, you're probably right too, like in that aspect, because it's like The Martian can be a movie just because it is like it's a movie about grabbing this guy and bringing him home. That's
pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. That's the concept kind of thing. And this book is more like oh shit, we have a problem. We need to figure out the problem. Oh, this guy just woke up, doesn't know what's going on. Now he's got to figure out what's going on, plus fix the problem, plus add alien. You know what I mean? Like hijinks ensue. Obviously, like on the ship.
There might be a lot
more
of stuff
to do for sure. So I think you'd definitely be right about that one. Of like this one definitely should have probably fallen into that like mini show kind of thing or whatever. Like eight episodes of like maybe 45 minutes or whatever, 45 to an hour or something. I think would definitely make the story a lot palatable for a lot more people.
I think the length of Chernobyl, the HBO drama series.
That was like what, 6 episodes?
Yep, that length would be perfect for it. I think.
Or even that. Like, I'd imagine like, if I'm being honest, like like HBO or somebody like that would pick it up like that, to do exactly that, to do like a 6 episode like mini thing of 45 to an hour per episode or whatever, and I think that would tie it up, put a nice little bow on it, and people would understand the story, kind of get the concepts a little bit more, and then instead of just being like I watched a 2.5 hour movie, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, no, they're actually making this as a sequel to The Martian, and the commander that's in charge of everything, instead of it being the woman, they're replacing that with Matt Damon's character from The Martian. He's taken over now, so he's going to be the one that puts it all together and forces him on.
Seriously?
No.
They already.
It is actually being distributed by Amazon, according to Google. Amazon MGM.
So to go off the whole Martian versus this one comparison, Martian made $630 million. Do you think this makes less or more than that with Ryan Gosling?
I think it's going to be less. I think it's going to be less because I also think the budget's going to be bigger, and the just the logistics of having to create like Rocky and things like that, and a lot more of actual space travel is going to be more expensive to make. So I think it'll have a bigger budget, and I think it's going to come in. I think around 4 to 5 is probably accurate if they market it correctly.
I think so.
See, I think one of the things that's going to plague it, and we just we kind of discussed it earlier, Ryan Gosling being a believable Ryan Grace.
I think that'll be fine. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about the fact that it's not going to get the critical review the other one did, because it's not entirely human. The Martian did well and got award nominations and stuff because it was all human in a very human element.
Human people try to get their human back.
Yeah, whenever you add in anything fantastical, there's some people that are immediately turned off no matter what.
Yeah,
right. They're like, "Oh, is this a movie about aliens? I don't want to watch a movie about aliens." It just,
specifically with the Oscars and stuff.
What I would do, I don't think they'll do this, but if I was marketing it, I would never say a fucking word about Rocky. Wouldn't be in the trailer. It would all be about the sun's being taken out. We got to fix it. This human's going to go fix it. I wouldn't say a word. There would be nothing in the trailer, no synopsis, nothing.
You know what though, David? Like to like that point, I think it would even be better that way.
Oh, it would be. Just
because,
like Red Hulk. Red Hulk should not have been in any of the Captain America advertising.
Right.
That is the same sentiment I've gotten from everybody who's seen the movie so far. By the way, it's that same thing.
It follows the same logic of like us with the book. You know what I mean? We went into the book not knowing that there was gonna be aliens or that there was any alien element, right?
It's better as a surprise.
And it's just better as a surprise. So it's not gonna be a surprise to those, right? To us that have read the book or that know about it. But realistically, I think you're exactly right. I think you keep the alien element out until
it happens.
until it happens, and it's just because like some people love the twist,
Handle
Like,
it like the Spider-Man No Way Home trailers back before the movie came out, where you
scrub
just
him out of everything, just erase
edit
him.
out Rocky from every frame he's ever been in.
So pretty much, there's just a one small scene in the trailer of him running with his hands empty, just empty.
Or another idea. Yeah, just running around. There's clearly something there.
Just
Like,
miming, like lugging this dude around.
This is a weird trailer. Or another idea. I want to get your guys' opinion on this because I just thought of it. What about revealing Rocky at the very end of the third trailer?
No,
Nope.
don't.
Not at all.
No,
No.
none.
No,
Zero.
I love
Zero.
not knowing that there was. I thought it was gonna be super grounded, and the only alien life was the algae.
Exactly.
And then when the other spaceship rolled up, at first, like I said, I thought it was people. And then when it was like, no, this is an alien spacecraft, I was like, well, I didn't expect that at all.
Right.
See, to those points, honestly, I think people have forgotten the fact that the art of the trailer is essentially the book cover for the movie. You
It's supposed to be a
not give out
tease,
all the
not
juicy
give me the
parts.
story.
Yeah, just give me the highlights. Just tell me what it's about, and that's it. I don't need to know the little bits and pieces. If you have to give me the meat of the story in the trailer, your movie's not that good.
Right.
So
What was
speaking
that?
of the
What was
book
that
too,
movie?
real
What was that
quick,
movie with Jonah Hill and he was the babysitter? Because that
It
movie
sounds
had
like
that.
something that has nothing to do with this book.
Well, no, that was like part of it has nothing to do with the book. No, you're right, absolutely. But no, that's the reason. That's the reason I hate trailers sometimes, because that movie had a trailer and like everything important and funny that happened in the film was in the trailer.
That's a lot
And
of
then
movies, unfortunately.
everything else was just bad.
yeah. Well, I was going to throw this little nugget out. Project Hail Mary has more reviews than The Martian. So maybe it has a little bit of a book fan base. I'll go watch it.
Well, no,
I
that's
did-
that's easily because this came out after The Martian was a movie and after
Yeah.
people were made aware. Whereas The Martian is something that he self-published the first time, and then when it got republished, it was hype with the movie and stuff like that. Like, it makes sense that this book would have more because people are like, oh, that guy did The Martian. I like that movie. I'll read this. So
Well, right.
it
And
doesn't
that's-
surprise me.
Artemis
exactly-
has like nothing compared to these two. Like it's like way down there. Those are pretty close.
Well,
Artemis is
on
at like
top of that, it came out during COVID too, so that's probably definitely not going to hurt it in any way.
Yeah,
Right.
when people needed something to do.
Because I'm pretty sure The Martian was like 2016 or 2017, like as far as like when that like the book came out.
Something like that.
And then Artemis, I think, was like 2019, and then this was 2021 is when this one came out.
2017 looks to be Artemis.
Okay, so yeah, so it's in the middle or whatever, right? But yeah, it's I think that's definitely why. But at this point, like it's his third book, and he's pretty established after the first two. So it makes sense that this one's a little bit more popular, has a little more traction, right? Because the first one, The Martian or whatever, I'm sure not a lot of people like knew what it was until the movie came out and stuff like that. Because I personally didn't, right? So for me, like I'm sitting here watching The Martian, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is a cool movie or whatever. It's a great idea, something like that. And someone's like, yeah, but like, did you read the book? And I was like, oh, it's a book. Like what? Yeah, and that happens like a lot, right? Whereas I'll end up watching whatever movie it is, and then like, oh, this was based on, whatever book, and then I'll have to go and like read the book too, just so I can be like Berg over there and be like, well, I liked the book better, because a lot of the times the book is better. You know what I mean? It gives you a lot more characters, or it gives you some back.
Gives you a lot more exposition,
insight,
the movie ever
exposition,
will.
things like that. Yeah, it's one
It's
of those
funny
ones that-
though, but I've got to say, reading this, I don't think. I mean, I know you guys said a series, all this stuff. I don't really think there's all that much that can't be condensed into a movie format for this story.
You don't think so?
I think
I think it could be.
2.5 hours.
It would either work as a short series or a long movie.
I think a 2 hour to 2.5 hour is more than enough for this, because again, I do feel like a lot of parts of this dragged on for no reason. Again, I didn't need 20 pages about his third spacewalk. I didn't need we talked about the language thing. I like that they said how it happened. I didn't need 4 chapters of them going back and forth with simple words and slowly learning it. I get that it
Yeah.
built the atmosphere and the reasoning. From a story standpoint, it was unnecessary. I could
Oh, yeah.
I could probably cut almost 100 pages from this book and still get the exact same story out there in the same way. I also don't feel like a lot of the characters on Earth got a ton of characterization. There was him, and then the
Strat,
main
that's about
female.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Like, I don't have a
Because I
problem
was
with
like, realistically, they're
all
not
that was
integral to
needed.
the story. Realistically,
and they weren't supposed to be. Like, she was
Right.
keeping people from getting close. I get it. I think that's totally fine. But again, I do feel like a lot of things were unnecessary. And to the point of the actual writing itself, he has a very, and this is, take it, I mean, this isn't good or bad, it's neutral, but he has a very distinct writing style. As I read this book, I could 100% see how this was the same guy responsible for The Martian. It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
same sense of humor, the same type of sentence structure, the same, and I think it's very funny that the countdown clock, the thing that's, that they're racing against, is food in both stories.
I mean, realistically, that's like
So
I
they
said.
have to save him quick because the potatoes all die. He's not going to be able to live, and then he's not going to have enough food to make it. I
Well,
just think
that's
it's
what I'm saying, like-
interesting that's like the big pressing thing again. And I guess with space,
Space.
it's a popular. I agree. I just don't know as a writer if I would want 66.66% of my novels to have the same problem.
Well, I mean, it's a different problem, but it's the same. I mean, okay, so I get what you're saying, but at the same time, like realistically, that's how space works.
Oh,
Like,
it totally is.
Like, you know what I mean? Lack of resources or whatever. Like,
right, but I would
run out of water, dead.
found-
Run out of food, dead.
if I couldn't find another way to do it, I wouldn't write the story.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. It's just I feel like that problem just doesn't go away though. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it kind of like sucks that he's like leaning. It's going back to that well or whatever, right? On like the race against like food, but at the same time, like that just doesn't go away.
Right, that's like saying air.
Yeah, right. It just. I guess he chose.
I get it. Again, I don't
twice or
think
whatever,
I don't think it's incorrect.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a little boring,
Sure.
but not as boring as 3 fucking separate. I have to go outside of the ship.
And
And
man,
then
it's not like spacewalks.
the in-depth detail about Rocky was just not riveting literature for you.
no, and I didn't need to know how he pooped. That
was dire information, David.
We talked about, I mean, again, I'm not a science guy. I do like that there did seem to be sound science behind all this. I didn't need basically textbook dragging on about certain science aspects of this.
I agree.
Sure.
The only time that it was like necessary was when he was investigating how the
right, that I get, so that we could understand what was going to happen. I totally get that, but I feel like he went on way too long about a lot of the more science, almost as if he's like, well, I had to research this, so I'm going to use it, or like, I think this is fascinating, so I'm going to say all of it. But then the science I actually wanted to know / needed to know, as Nick brought up about how it was able to get through this new wonder thing.
Yeah.
We suddenly stop with the science. We don't worry about that. It just happened.
Huh, I love it. Now we don't worry about the science, huh?
So, I mean, overall, I'd probably give this like an 8. I think it was a really good book. I liked the story a lot. I think it dragged in some points. I think his writing style is very distinct. I understand why he was self-published at first, because I probably wouldn't have picked it up either with his writing style. But I think it was a compelling story. It was interesting. Made some different choices than I personally would. But again, a good book is one that makes you think.
Right.
And there was definitely a lot to think about. It was a good moral issue. He did show character growth, even if it wasn't the direction I think it should have gone in. It still happened. I would definitely read another book by him, and I'm excited to see how the movie does.
So I was like, and I remember my question now, what I was going to say, because this is one of the big main ones that like I was curious about and why I wanted to share this one with you guys. His idea, right, of what's the term? Panspermia, essentially, I think is the terminology. Where it is one of those ones that the same genetic material gets spread across the universe, but it grows in different ways depending on its environment. Hence why we're both, like in this,
like the water-based versus
we're both,
yeah,
like carbon-based life forms, right? But it is one of those things that the atmospheres are different, and obviously Rocky has a carapace and all that kind of stuff because of his environment, right? But at the end of the day, we're still technically the same like carbon-based life form, just from different places. And it was one of those ones that got me thinking a lot, like while I was reading this one, is exactly that of like, what if that is the case? Like, what if that is like, that's how that works, is they just kind of, somebody essentially, for lack of a better term, was just like all over the universe, and whatever grows, you know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's such a cool concept, because this was the first time I ever thought about it or heard about that concept, and I think that's like a super cool thing to think about, or at least to have like a conversation about,
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of unknowns in the universe as we have it now. So
yeah, I don't know enough about
it's-
science to intelligently talk to you about carbon-based versus other ones.
No, yeah, but we do know enough about concepts to know that there's without a doubt the possibility of other life being out there that's similar to us in at least one way.
Right.
Well, panspermia is something that like Neil deGrasse Tyson's talked about with like Mars or asteroids giving birth to maybe life on Earth or stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Bigfoot's on Mars. I don't see why Rocky couldn't exist.
There's no Bigfoots on Mars.
You don't remember that rumor from like 10 years ago?
No.
Oh, there's a whole news article about it. It was reported on like CBS and all that stuff where like somebody saw like a rock on Mars through some pictures and they're like, that's Bigfoot. And it's like, no, it's a rock on Mars. Like, get over it.
That's absolutely wild to me. Like what? Yeah, it's just but like I said, it's just an interesting concept to think about of like because I do like personally like to believe that there's aliens and other life out there, just because like in my brain, right, it makes sense to me of the fact that it's like there's no possible way. Like I have two conflicting schools of thought here, right? One is it's like we're definitely not alone because realistically we can't be. You know what I mean? Like there's no possible way that Earth is the only place where the conditions are absolutely suitable to sustain any form of life.
I want to say we've already discovered another planet exactly like Earth in another system.
More than one.
Yeah, we've discovered quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine there's a possibility that life could be on those planets.
Oh, 1000%. Because like realistically, Earth and humans are what happens when you don't keep things in a cool, dry place. Like realistically,
I mean, James Cameron made a whole documentary about life maybe being on a moon of Jupiter. It's called Aliens of the Deep. But yeah,
nice.
I thought you were going for
that's the basis of the guy who wrote I think Ernest Cline, who wrote Ready Player One.
Ready Player One. Yeah.
He has another book that's completely separate that is basically Last Starfighter.
It's called Armada. I've read it. It was the Last Starfighter.
It was okay. It wasn't bad. You can he's an author with a very distinct writing style. You can tell it's Ready Player One. But his aliens come from a planet. A moon off of Neptune, I believe, because it's like a watery.
No, they come from Mars, actually.
No, not his aliens. Not in that one.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're much further away.
No, I'm pretty sure it's from Mars, but it's one of those ones that because they end up like our planet ends up seeing like a swastika or some shit like on Mars.
No, you're thinking of a totally different book, bro.
No, I swear to God, that's what it is. And then so it's one of those ones that they like Earth decides to like attack them essentially because they see the swastika as a sign of aggression, right?
They're on Europa.
Okay, so
which is the moon of Neptune.
Okay. I thought it was Mars, but either way, because
he's on the moon. Because he's on the moon base where he finds his dad that he thought was dead and all that crazy.
They attack us essentially.
Is Europa Neptune or Jupiter?
I don't. Let me see.
Europa is a moon of Jupiter, I'm sure.
Yeah. So they whoever wrote that watched Aliens of the Deep, and he was like, "What if?"
I think it is.
Europa is a
I think
moon
it is
of
Jupiter. Okay,
Is a
then yeah,
moon
they're
of
from that
Jupiter.
moon, so it's probably the same one, but it's very watery. But ultimately, in that book, the aliens were only attacking because they needed to test if Earth was civilized enough to be talked to and like in the society, because he chooses not to destroy them when he could. So they say, because of your mercy, we accept you instead of destroying Earth.
Pretty much, right? Because like it's because it is one of those ones that like it goes through the book of them like being attacked, and the whole like Last Starfighter thing is exactly that. It was like a
Video
everybody
game that was
plays this
training
video
people.
game, right? And they took the top 10 people of whatever the leaderboard is, and of course he's one of them. And they take him and the 10 other people, and they're like, you guys are gonna head our like drone program kind of thing because you guys are the best pilots. Yeah,
Are
it's
you
a whole thing.
describing pixels, Nolan?
It's look, Pixels, The Last Starfighter, it's all the same shit, bro. However, it's one of those ones because I'm like reading this and I was like, this is just The Last Starfighter. Like, it really is, but
Even the
way
cover looks like The Last Starfighter, yeah.
right, and the way they go about it,
They
like,
literally mention Last Starfighter several times, and he's like, that's one of my favorite movies because my dad was really into 80s stuff and he died but left it all behind for me. Like, it's very, very cliched.
oh, super. And it is one of those ones that like David, I enjoyed the book. I liked it.
Oh,
even
it was
though
entertaining as hell. I
Last
enjoyed
Starfighter,
reading
it
it,
was very entertaining,
but
yeah.
it is not a good book. It's
No,
like
not by
it's
any
like one of
means.
those. It's garbage, and I know it, but I want to read it.
It's a what is it, a guilty pleasure, if you will?
It's like reality TV.
It's
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
it's-
McDonald's of books. Like, you know you shouldn't eat there, but you're like,
Because then they also go into like, as soon as we discovered that the
McDonald's.
aliens, yeah, they say like as soon as we discovered aliens were there, basically Hollywood was an entire cover for aliens existing, and they were slowly sending us sci-fi stuff to
Introducing us
get
to-
us to accept this idea.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just one of those things that his dad gets kidnapped because he was really good at whatever game back in the day.
Oh, he wasn't kidding. He was told, like, he said yes, let's go, and then he faked his death.
They faked his death, and he's now the head honcho
Commander on the moon
of the
base
thing,
yeah.
and like his whole relationship with his mom is like a whole thing. Because he's like, oh, my dad died, and like it's like part of his identity.
After he's saved the world, he's made us friends with the aliens. He decided to spend the rest of his life running a video game store.
Pretty much, yeah. Which sounds like a lot like the end of Ready Player One.
No, did you read Ready Player 2?
No.
No.
Somebody said don't do it, and I said okay, that's fine.
No, you should, because they're gonna make a movie of that too. But basically, Ready Player 2, James Halliday,
yep,
that left it all to him and everything. So
Spoiler alert.
This is the premise of the book. Halliday's the bad guy in the second one. Because the Halliday that like gave him the keys and everything and like talked to him at the end of the first one, that is a kind of a version of AI, but it was so sophisticated it wasn't released yet, where it's basically his soul in the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say his soul or his
so the entire
cognitive or whatever.
Kind of, but it's not his body or anything. But the entire thing brings up a lot about what is reality, what is AI. It becomes almost matrixy.
Ugh. I think.
And hey, one part of the book, they have like a boss fight type thing, and they literally have a fight, like a literal fight, against a horde of prints in different formats from different music videos and stuff. They have to fight prints.
That's kind of funny, actually. Like, that's entertaining.
In another point, they have to track down John Hughes throughout all of the John Hughes movies, like go to the Breakfast Club school and all. Yeah, and they have to find him.
I'm sure I'll probably find it entertaining.
Fun. Like, there's interesting, it's full of just references to be references. But if you enjoyed the first one at all, it's kind of garbage, but it's entertaining.
So it's funny that you said it, because I enjoyed the first one, and it led me into wanting to jump into like the acting like even harder. Of like, just sometimes you just got to send it and do something that you want to do, and
it's a cool concept. Like,
I enjoyed the concept.
It was his love letter for all the stuff he grew up with. Like, I liked it. It was fine. The only thing I didn't really like is the beginning of it. He and his friends are all broken up over stupid stuff.
Oh,
so they're not friends until throughout the book they become friends again.
Yeah, classic trope.
But yeah, so I gave this an 8. What does anybody else want to do?
I'll go last. We'll just take it around the table. Go ahead, Greyson.
I'll take it from here. I'll say this was overall pretty good book. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 overall. Premise was great. Most of the story was great. The only thing that just really bothered me was just having to hear Ryland's inner monologue continuously drawn out over and over and over and over and over and over again. If I have to hear about his stinking paper talking about life not being founded only on water, I honestly felt like I was probably going to lose my mind having to hear that for the 85th time near the end of the book.
He was very butthurt about that.
Right.
Dude, I'm sick because I had to it was it. So the reason that bothers me so much is that I did have to read like the last half of the book via not really reading it, but listening to it via audiobook. The audiobook was horrible. Anyway.
See, what I think is interesting, though, you brought up a good point. I know in The Martian, it must have been a lot like this with like the inner monologue, and they got around that by him doing the video logs.
Doing video logs, yeah.
I wonder what they're going to do for this one, or if they're just going to find a way to cut it out.
Well, honestly, I was going to ask Grayson if you read The Martian.
Nolan, go ahead.
I was going to say, have you read The Martian?
No, I haven't read The Martian.
Okay, so that makes sense because because you say like his inner monologue thing, like David's right, like that's how they get around like the inner monologue bit is like, essentially Starlog, star date, whatever, blah blah blah. Like,
see, and that makes sense for The Martian because he realistically is leaving it for at least other people to find or whatever.
Right.
Whereas Ryland,
but he does still have a lot of like inner monologue in the Martian. So
I'm sure in the book, yeah, I'm saying in the movie they translated by doing that.
Right.
How they're going to do it in this one.
It's his writing style, realistically. Like because again, I have all three of his books, right? So I have The Martian, Artemis, and it's honestly a key staple of his writing style. So if you don't really particularly like that, it's the other books might annoy you if you decided to branch out and read those two. Because he relies a lot on that like inner monologue kind of thing. Because I think like I think it's funny, at least to me, right? Because of like how I think to myself. Because one of my favorite lines from The Martian is like, I think this is literally like after he blows himself up the first time. He like blows himself up, and then it's just like it kind of like ends with the just with the line of like, okay, well that sucked. I blew myself up. I wonder how the Cubs are doing. Like it's just like, what? It's so random sometimes, but like that's my brain right there is like you have to think of stupid shit to get you through hard situations.
We'll see. Look,
I
don't get me wrong. I did appreciate some of that, but when it's like 3 or 4 pages into just that diatribe of inner monologue, I appreciated a little bit of that here and there. Definitely add some levity to the situation. Kind of just gives you more of the inside the person that is narrating the story. Yeah. I don't have an issue with that. It's when it goes on for too long, and I feel like a lot of this kind of drug out just to kind of like be like either talking about science stuff or just like random, just continuous, just like him complaining about not being able to go inside the alien ship. I don't know why that grated against me so bad, but it did. Because every time he was like, I want to go in there and see a ship.
Which is weird because like for me, I go, I want to go inside the ship. Like I'm thinking that myself. I'm like, because it's an alien ship. Like, hell yeah, I want to go inside the alien ship. But it's ammonia in there, so that would be a terrible idea. Unless I had like like actual spacesuit to protect me. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like I get where you're coming from though, like with it. Like sometimes, like David said, like sometimes it just goes on for too long. Like a little bit.
He gets very long-winded in a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, I don't think it necessarily affects, the quality of the story. It's fine. I enjoy it enough. It's not my favorite thing to read through all of that, especially with this book. So, I mean, overall, it takes down the score for me a little bit. It's still enjoyable. The premise is great. The science is there. Everything makes sense. They're not substituting magic for science with this. So I feel everything overall, like I can't be mad at the story. It's an enjoyable story. It's just for me personally, that little bit of stuff that he does with his writing style takes it down for me just a little bit. But everything else, enjoyable. Like it had me on the edge of my seat. Like it's like, especially during like the investigation scenes where he's using, like science to actually figure out how the astrophage actually reproduce, or trying to, save Rocky or anything else like that. I enjoyed that stuff, but it's just little stuff like that kind of just really it's not my favorite. But other than that, yeah, 7 out of 10, definitely worth checking out. It's a good read.
Oh yeah. What about you, Berg? What you got, kid?
Real quick before you go, Nick. Apparently, they are making a movie out of Armada.
We already got The Last Starfighter. It's a great movie. No need to rehash.
All right, sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
You're good. No, I agree. I agree with David. Agree with David and Grayson. I think the reason why the inner monologue didn't bother me as much is because I'm an overthinker, and like that's kind of how my brain operates too. Is I just go through stuff in my head over and over again. But I would agree with the score of 8 out of 10. I thought it was a great book. Again, my only gripe was the Tamiba permeating through the Xenonite because I felt like that undermined the Xenonite being this awesome, fantastical thing that Ryland was obsessing over for most of the book. But then at the end, it just kind of got pushed aside. But I mean, yeah, I thought it was a good book. I literally had like 4 or 5 chapters left on that last day of reading, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit down and read through it all. I don't care if I want to do anything else. If I want to play a video game or something, I'm gonna just finish this book. And David and I had talked about it. I couldn't eat me burgers for the rest of my life. I couldn't do it.
Like I get survive. Like okay, I have enough now to get back. Totally into that, but the other is like, oh.
Could you imagine getting back though? Like, what have you been eating? I've been eating burgers that made out of my own flesh that some other alien scientist cloned and gave me a lifetime supply of.
Well, to be fair, apparently we taste like pork, so
That's why they call human long pork.
Long pig.
And also, to be fair, too, we taste disgusting if we have tattoos. So I'm safe from any.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty safe over here too, from cannibalism, anyways. But
well, we're live, so I'm not going to go into a lot of comments and jokes I would like to about this subject.
Why would you like to?
We'll talk about it after we go.
We'll talk about it afterwards. It's okay. Yeah. I'm just giving you a hard time. Just felt like a good moment for a comedic jape there, but apparently didn't land well.
It's okay. We know you're not around women a lot. We understand.
Oh my god, I don't want to be part of this shit anymore.
All right. What's your rating there, Bird?
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. I like that. It's good. It's a good score right here. Solid. What about you, Keegan? What you got?
I mean, overall, I enjoyed it. I think much like everyone else, there was parts that definitely dragged, like certain reading sessions where I'd sit down and read it went by a lot quicker and I went through a lot more pages, where some of the other ones it was like, okay, there's maybe more you had to ingest or stuff, but overall I think it was good. It was well written. I think maybe he does better with fewer characters, because I will say once it got a little bit more populated with some of those flashbacks, I think the writing wasn't as good. Rocky though, 10 out of 10. Like I said, I was kind of worried they were going to make him the bad guy at the end. I was like, oh man, it's gonna suck, because I had texted everyone 10 out of 10. But as far as like the book itself, I'd say a solid 8 out of 10. It's one that at least I enjoyed, and I think it's ground enough that if you don't really like sci-fi, I think you could get away with enjoying this one. And at least it made me want to pick up, like I have The Martian. I was going to pick up Artemis this weekend, but we have some other books on the docket. So I was like, let me get through those and then I'll pick that one up. But 8 out of 10.
Oh yeah, if you get the chance, like Artemis isn't a terrible idea to read. Cause I don't. Have you read The Martian?
Oh, when it first came out, yeah.
Okay, so so I mean, so you kind of understand how his like writing style is, but even then, like Artemis is still very similar in that regard, where it is kind of like a very similar writing style. But to me, that one, like I said, reads like more like a young adult novel, than like a like a sci-fi novel or The Martian. So it's a little bit different than these two. I still thought it was enjoyable. I liked the story. I thought it was cool. But it is one of those ones. It's like he very specific type of writing style. So, but overall, 8 out of 10, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it better than I even liked the Martian movie. So
Nice. Well, like I said,
I-
I'll take that.
Nolan, what's your score?
So me, first and foremost, I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's up there for me just because not just because I suggested it, but two, just because I like I said, I really enjoyed it. It's probably one of my favorite books that I've read in the past, I don't know, I'd say 4 years. And it's in my lane of sci-fi, so I'm already like drawn to it anyways. That's because as far as books go, like I'm a huge like sci-fi / like fantasy type of individual, right? Like those type of books. So like I was already drawn in, you know, I mean, coming out because I think I literally read this book a week or two after The Martian. So my buddy let me borrow it. He was like, "Oh, you should read The Martian," and I read The Martian. He's like, "Hey, he's got other books. Like here's the other books." And I read, I think one of them, one a week, I think. So I read this one, then Artemis, and then Project Hail Mary or whatever. I think it, you know, in the span of 3 weeks. So and this one was, I think, honestly, my favorite out of all 3 of his books that he's got so far. So I'm definitely a little bit more biased there, but yeah, I don't know. I like his writing style, so I don't have problems with his like inner monologue bit like Greyson does down there. But it's probably because I'm like you, Berg. Like it's just huge overthinker. Like I'm a lot in my head, and then like stuff like that just happens. And I think that's why like it feels comfortable to me, is because I'm like, oh man, this guy's literally writing like I talk like in my head to myself a lot of the time. So it's like, oh yeah, that's the thought. The thought is there. On top of the fact that, like I said, everything in space, man, like it's, you do this, you're dead. You know, lack of this, you're dead. And I think his humor works really well, and it lands really good, especially when it's like you're on the cusp of dying. Like I would like to think that if I were on the cusp of dying, like I would probably be saying some of the same stuff, having like a relatively like the only way to really get through this is to just kind of laugh at the situation and hope everything works out. You know, obviously I would try to do everything that I possibly can to make sure the situation does work, but at the same time, it's like, that's how you keep from like getting down on yourself, I guess, or trying to like, well, this situation sucks. Like try to make the best out of a bad situation, essentially. So, and I appreciate that about his writing style, and all of his characters. They kind of do that. So, huge fan of that. But I don't know. It's like David said, it's a good book. It makes you think. It's got some cool concepts, some cool ideas in there that when you read it, you're like, okay, like this is get you thinking about different things, whether it be the science, whether it be the panspermia like idea or whatever of you know, other things being out there, and I really enjoyed that bit. So like overall, like I said, for me, 8.5 out of 10. You know, nothing's perfect, but I think this book is comes pretty close for me, in my opinion. So yeah, 8.5 out of 10.
Average score being 7.9.
How do you get that?
because Grayson gave it a 7.
8 plus 8 plus 8, so 8, 8, 8. Grayson gave it a 7, another 8.
No,
Add
the
that together.
grand total would be 8. We don't do 0.9s.
Repeating, of course.
Oh my god, go fuck yourself if that's how you're going to be about it. Jesus Christ.
Leroy Jenkins.
Right.
Jesus criminy.
But yeah, so average about an 8. Pretty solid, I think.
Especially for a sci-fi, because again, I don't read a ton of sci-fi,
Right.
so it's nice to read one that I enjoyed.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that I brought a table to the book. Brought a table to the book. Brought a book to the table that most of everybody enjoyed, even if it was out of your comfort zone. And I think that's what makes these fun, right? Is exactly that. It's like I probably would have never read Midnight Library on my own. You know, it's a cool concept. It sounds super fun, right? But once I started reading it, I was like, oh, okay, this is like an enjoyable book.
Yeah, let's go through now and compare this book to Midnight Library. You ready? I'm just kidding. We couldn't do that with every book. That would take so long.
Oh, that would be awful. But yeah, it's one of those ones that I'm glad though. Like I brought one that might be out of people's comfort zones, or ones that they go, yeah, I probably would have read that or picked it up on my own, and then read it and I actually enjoyed it and liked it. So yeah, points for me.
Well, and speaking of books on the table, now that we've gotten through Project Hail Mary, I believe the wheel is spinning to David. David, what book are we going to be reading next month?
Well, we read a book that I think we had a 7 at first. Now we have an 8. Next up, we're reading a straight up 10 out of 10. Definitely fantasy adventure is my go-to genre. It is my personal favorite. Some of my favorite epic tales all come from this. So for this next month of March, we will be reading the superb, one of my all-time favorite books of all time, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. It is an epic fantasy in every sense of the word. It is absolutely spectacular. I would highly suggest anybody who's reading it along with us, don't look anything up, don't read the back, just start reading it. It is a beautiful book. It is gorgeous in the way it is written, the prose, the words. It has got such an interesting flow to it, and a story that will definitely keep you engaged and keep you wanting to keep turning those pages for more. Amazing, epic book. I think you guys hopefully will all very much enjoy it. It is very, very different from the last 2 that we've read. So definitely a tonal shift. Very basic premise of this is the epic heroes that you always read about in different stories and things, people telling stories about. This is kind of one of those stories, but from the actual hero himself, of what is the true story behind the larger than life tales that get told about him. This is like, it's kind of like the Hollywood story of an actual epic adventurer, of like, well, this is what actually happened, and you see kind of how it got blown out of proportion or whatever happened, or the few things that did deserve to be talked about as highly as they were later on, kind of thing. Very interesting story, and I think you guys will definitely dig it.
I like it. It's the old like, oh, Ozzy bit the head off of a bat, and now we have Ozzy's story. Oh, I don't know about it. You know, that sounds quite fantastic.
And I will say something that I do feel like the last 2 books, I'm not going to say were lacking, but didn't have a lot in, was characterization. Definitely a lot of characters in this that you actually get to spend time with and get to know and develop. And even though it is set in a like fantasy setting and stuff, very, very relatable throughout the book. I would say one of the hero's main problems is he is just perpetually poor.
In this economy, absolutely, yeah.
Right, something we can all relate to.
What? Be an adventurer in this economy?
But if you ever enjoyed things like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, etc., etc., it's very much in the same vein. So I invite you guys to come along with me on this adventure, and hopefully we'll all have a good time.
Cool. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Picked up my copy this weekend. But for anyone watching, you want to keep up with us, as per usual, our stuff will be in the description below. Or you can come talk books with us at our Discord, which is also in the description below. And let us know if you've read Project Hail Mary. What were your thoughts? Put them in the comments below. And maybe like Nolan, if you've read the 3, rank them and let us know which one was your favorite and least favorite. But until next time.